Welcome to the Money and Flow podcast, where avocado toast and stocks meet. Did you know that women and women of color don't talk that much about money? And did you also know that the health and wellness community is a $600 billion business? And did you also know that women aren't in the forefront when it comes to decision making with our health and wealth? We're here to change that. This is the first podcast that focuses on wellness and money. This podcast is targeted for women and women of color, specifically in their 20s and 30s. And without further ado, your host, Gideon George. Welcome to the Money and Flow podcast. This is your host, Gideon George. Super excited that you're here. Today we're going to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart. Most of y'all have heard that I have started to write a book. I finished the book, but we have not gone through revisions. So the book title is called Not Another White Guy's Money Book. I don't know if it's going to be that title anymore. People laugh. It's controversial, But the whole purpose of the book was to talk about my frustration of learning about money, going through all the ins and outs of financial planning, finances, and always just being stuck and not feeling like I truly fit in. So I haven't talked about this before, but I've done an abnormal amount of financial planning, and I didn't even know what that was at the time. So one of the things that I did was I was a big Dave Ramsey person, and that was fine. That worked out for a while, but that made me fear debt, and that actually is very bad if you're trying to build a business. And then also it's very bad if you've never been a person that has overspent. So that in itself was a mindset that was given to me, and that was not a mindset that I was used to. Plus, I grew up in the church, so feeling really guilty about not having enough money was very common for me. So I wrote a book called Not Your Average White Guy Money Book, and some of the many things that I talk about is the reason why a lot of women don't have money, or they hate the idea of money, is because there's a lot of myths that men typically talk about in money books. Plus, 95% of books about money were written by more men, and there's probably 5% that was written by women and other people of color. So if you're consistently reading the same thing over and over again, compound interest is the best, X, Y, and Z, you should invest like this, and you're not thinking about the cultural discrimination that has happened throughout the years, then that is a fundamental problem, and that there's no way we're going to build true wealth if we're still playing the haves and have-nots. Of course, there are some specific people that are literally slaying the game, and we always focus on them. We focus on the Beyoncés, we focus on the Obamas, we focus on people that have access to wealth, but it's still based off of the same idea that has been given to white males. So it's not to say that I dislike white males. I'm dating a white man, so it's not even that serious. But I wanted to talk about the one of my favorite chapters in the book, which is called A Financial Wrinkle in Time. So we're going to talk about that right now. All right, so today we're going to talk about a wrinkled in finance time. So there was this magical moment. There are a couple of magical moments when it comes to women in finance in the past that we should really hold and hone in on those stories because they're so important. If you haven't listened to the Black Girl Money Mystery series, we talked about activating your inner Madam C.J. Walker. For some of y'all, if this is your first time listening, Madam C.J. Walker was the first self-made millionaire that is a female. And to top it off, this happened like 120 years ago when slavery just was like lifted, and she was a child of sharecroppers. So it is very, very important to hone in on the parts in the past that were important instead of dwelling on the negative stuff. So today we're going to talk about the Witch of Wall Street. There was this one lady, and her name was Henrietta Henry Green, and they called her the Witch of Wall Street. So in the New York Times paper, they would say that this woman was the Witch of Wall Street, but y'all know I call her Lil Wit for short, okay? So this was during the time of J.P. Morgan and the Rockefellers, and there was only one woman that was a financier that was changing the game. So she was born out of wealth, but what is important to know is that when she was 6 years old, she read to her grandfather, who was Gideon Howell, so he was like a very prominent, well-known man. And look, Gideon Howell could not see, he couldn't see good, right? So this was her first interaction with money. This is a part of her money story. She would literally read to her parents and her grandparents the financial papers every day. That helped out Gideon understand what's going on with his money, but it also taught her these skills that were very helpful for her. When she was 13 years old, so we talking about Hetty, Henrietta. This woman was 13 years old and she became an accountant. So she started purchasing stocks on Wall Street at such a young age. But even then, people just thought she was a rude, evil woman. We know that's not the case. What we know is that people didn't understand the fact that she was slaying the game when it came to stocks. She was making so much money. And so because she was making so much money, she fine-tuned her skills on Wall Street. So they were not having it. They didn't like it. They didn't like the fact that she was a female and she was the only female. So they said that she smelled bad and had terrible handwriting and she was an unfit woman. So her dad was actually really embarrassed after he read this article, and her dad purchased her a bunch of clothes and was like, please go and find a man. And you know what she did? She took those clothes right back to the store, and then she still found a man and realized like that wasn't something that was important to her. So Hetty bought and purchased real estate like crazy. She purchased real estate, railroads, and she had a lot of crazy deals. And she invested like a hawk. And when she died, Green accumulated more than $100 million. And some people think that that's $2 billion to this day. And what's crazy and a little bit gangster about it is that Green had children, but her kids didn't have that many kids. So all of her money was actually given to charities and nonprofits. Okay. And this all happened before women had the right to vote. So, yes, is there a bunch of terrible things that have happened with women? Yes. But that is one money story that we should all keep in our pocket. People thought she was a witch, but let me tell you, she was one rich bitch, all right? So just think about that when you're thinking about, oh, there's nobody in my money story to help me out. There was nobody in her money story, and she was being put on blast for not wanting to be quote unquote dainty. So that's one story that we should really focus on. In February, I talked about Madam C.J. Walker. I'm just going to do a brief overview of C.J. Walker. She used to sell essential oils. She was a daughter of former slaves in Louisiana, didn't have that much money, got married at 14, husband died, remarried, all types of junk. By the age of 35, she said enough is enough. She started taking care of her own daughter. She was a laundress. She learned how to cook. She saved and sold hair products to make sure that her kids went to school. Her life was very uncertain. And because her life was very uncertain, she made it a point to start a business. And so Madam C.J. Walker was the gangster that came up with the Miracle Health Growth. So when you're thinking about, oh, who is one of the first leading ladies in wellness for self-care, that is Madam C.J. Walker. So she started selling a whole bunch of hair products, all right? I'm not going to go too deep into it because there is an episode that we talked about it. What is really, really, really important, and this is one of the things that I love about Madam C.J. Walker, is there was this New York Times article that interviewed her, and she realized her turning point for making her life and her child's life better. She said she was in the tub. I feel like I should do an accent, like, I was in the tub one morning with heavy, but maybe she has the English accent. So maybe she's like, I was in the tub one morning, the heavy wash before me. She won't talk like that. Anyways, she said, as I bent over the washboard and looked at my arms buried in soap suds, I say to myself, what are you doing when you grow old and your back gets stiff? Who's going to take care of your little girl? Like, come on. If you have that epiphany, and some of y'all are probably thinking that same thing, I've had that epiphany of can I actually make it? Can I have a business? Could it be viable? There are other people that share your same story. So what I wanted to say, especially when we're talking about a wrinkled in financial time, is every single woman, every single person that is listening to this podcast, what you need to know is there is a wrinkle in time in your life that you were good at money. It might have been when you started your lemonade stand, or it might have been when you saved up money to buy new tennis shoes. All of those wrinkles in time, that's what you should be focusing on when you're sad. So what I want you to do is take out a piece of paper, and I want you to think about your money story. So you can write out, Eugenie's money story. And I want you to write out one positive thing that's happened to you with money. And I also want you to write about how that made you feel. So I can give a great example. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with golf. I don't know why. But I kept saying and telling my mom that I need to learn how to golf because golfing is going to help me make business deals. And I was 8. Nobody taught me that. I feel like no one taught me that, but I was so certain about learning how to golf. Am I golfing now? No. I just miniature golf. But I think that is something that I kind of hold on to because, one, I was a kid talking about business deals, so that was a little gangster. But 2, I thought and knew in my hearts of hearts that I was going to be a business owner, or I was going to work for a business, even when I was that young. So I really want you to focus on writing all the positive things that have happened to you with your money, because when you're stressed, that's the thing that you should go to. It shouldn't be to go and look at Pinterest, even though I love looking at Pinterest when I'm stressed, but it should be looking at your money stories, looking at those wrinkle in finance times, so that you can focus on the present and then focus on the future. So that's pretty much it for today. It's one of these mini episodes because usually your girl out here, she's studying for the investment advisor exam. So I really hope y'all have a great week and really think about your financial wrinkle in time and how you can keep finding those little ripples along the way. Take care.